Welcome to Brave New Bookshelf, a podcast that explores the fascinating intersection of AI and authorship. Join hosts Steph Pajonas and Danica Favorite as they dive into thought-provoking discussions, debunk myths, and highlight the transformative role of AI in the publishing industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of the Brave New Bookshelf. I'm one of your co-hosts, Steph Pajonas. I now have an actual title, CMTO, which is like Chief of Marketing and Technology Officer, I guess. All right, at Future Fiction Academy and Future Fiction Press, where we're teaching authors how to use AI in any part of their process, and we publish AI forward books on the press. I am knee-deep in making lots of curriculum for the Future Fiction Academy. I am generating images, I'm reading through documents, I'm putting them all in Teachable and in Notion and doing all that fun. Really enjoy that kind of work. I like to see the materials intimately of what we teach students so that I can easily say, hey, we taught you how to do that in this particular class so that I'm never like blindsided by things that are going on in the company. So I actually really enjoy being down in the trenches and working on the curriculum, which is a lot of fun. Stacy and Elizabeth on our staff, they're the main people who come up with the curriculum, and then I help them execute it. And that's always a really good way to share the load between us, because Elizabeth and Stacy, they just have such great vision for this sort of thing, and I'm a total executioner. I have all of these executing strengths in my Clifton strengths. They're all up at the top. My number one is the deliberative, so I think things through a lot, wondering about the consequences of things that we do, and so I put all that to use in my role at the Future Fiction Academy, and I really enjoy it. And enough of my preamble, because we're going to do a lot of talking today, because it is just me and my lovely co-host, Danica Favorite, and we're going to be doing this together today. So Danica, how are you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Danica Favorite. I am the community manager at Publish Drive, where we help authors at all stages of their journey, from getting their manuscript formatted to coming up with metadata and AI book covers, as well as distributing your book to the widest audience possible. And then once your book starts selling, we can help you with some in-store promos, as well as splitting royalties with co-authors and other contributors. So yeah, we're kind of doing a lot of different things as well, just working with this whole movement in AI and how that impacts business. I just saw this, I keep seeing it starting to go around about how many more books are being produced now that AI is on the scene. And I don't necessarily want to quote it because I have not verified the accuracy of it yet, but it was really interesting to see the number of books, because everyone, including Publish Drive, is struggling with how do we handle this deluge of content, and how do we as authors handle that as well. But for Publish Drive, really making sure that we're meeting store standards for declaring AI, and just doing all of that properly, and making sure we're sending what the stores deem good quality books. And how do you determine what those things are? So it's really interesting times. And I always like to say we are very pro AI at Publish Drive. However, we do have to meet store standards and make sure that we are adhering to store guidelines. And we'll see how that changes over time, because I think it's all rapidly changing. And Steph and I are recording this in May, and this episode is probably not coming out until mid-July. So we were banking a bunch of episodes, trying to get ahead of things. I was just telling Steph, it's actually snowing here in Denver. You may have heard me talk about the drought that we're facing, and this will help us a little bit, but we're getting the biggest snowstorm we've had all year. So we're excited about that.
It's a little crazy that it's coming in May of all times.
Right.
It was 80 degrees here yesterday.
Yeah, although, like I say to people about Denver, so my youngest daughter was born during a May snowstorm. And then when she graduated high school, they had to move graduation indoors because of a snowstorm, and we had over a foot of snow. So it's not unheard of to have snow in May, but It is weird to talk about snow, knowing that everyone will be listening to this in July, but maybe you'll be able to cool down. You'll envision the snow where I was telling Steph I just had to close my blinds a little bit because the glare from the snow was so big. So gotta love it. Gotta love it. And gotta love technology and the ability that it gives us.
Yeah, you were just talking about the deluge of books, right? We're seeing a lot of reports from people, like sometimes they're just anecdotal on Facebook, on Substack, different places where there is just a lot of content out there right now, right? And we're not even just talking about books in general. The amount of content that has shown up on social media, it's text posts, it's image posts, it's video posts, and a lot of it is generated by AI. And I think about that a lot because as everybody knows, I'm very AI positive, right? I love AI. I love all that it can do for us. It does have its positives and its negatives, right? We cannot deny the fact that it has its negatives, but do they cancel out everything that's positive about it? No, not as far as I'm concerned. I think that as with everything in life, you have to take the good with the bad and figure out where you're going to go from there with it. I struggle with this whole idea of so much content because of the fact that so many algorithms run our lives now, whether it's social media, whether it's the Amazon algorithm, whether it's any algorithm at a store or wherever it may be. And we don't have a lot of control over that. We don't know how it works. We don't know whether or not, if you publish 3 books in a week, is that really going to help you? Is it going to hurt you? You just don't know. Unfortunately, these black boxes are ruling our lives when it comes to this, right? So I've been thinking a lot about this, trying to counsel authors to remember that they're human beings, that you're a human being who's running these tools. You're making choices based on your taste, on your judgment about what you like from AI output, what you don't like from AI output, and that we need to continue to be human to our audience so that they know that there is a living, breathing person behind the content that comes from them. So I'm continuing to tell people to almost go old school now with a lot of the platforms that are available to us. So if you get on Substack, comment as yourself, be yourself on there. If you have a blog on your website, blog about your life, blog about the kinds of things that you're talking about. If you're on social media, if social media is the only place that you present yourself to the world, post pictures of your world, the things that you're doing, talk about your opinions, talk about those sorts of, even if it's like an opinion about tea. It doesn't matter. Exactly, right? Just try to be as human as possible, because I think that this is honestly going to be the differentiator between a content mill that is just pumping out content and not doing any of it in a human-centric way, and then the way that you do things with your content and the worlds you create, the characters you create, and putting your stamp on it as a human being.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And one of the things as you're talking, and I really cannot remember your exact phraseology, so hopefully you will remember as I'm sharing this, but it's really coming down to how can you use AI to enhance your own excellence? How can you be more excellent with your AI and enhance who you are, what you're doing, all of those things, because it isn't about replacing the humans, and it is about how we are able to show up better and more strongly. And it's so important for all of us to remember that we have to still use our human discretion and our human taste and all of those things. And that's actually why I'm leaning more into Substack. I know there's been some controversy over controversial figures on Substack, but I just ignore that. I ignore that person and that noise. And I focus on what I really do love. And for those of you who follow me on Substack, and for those of you who follow Steph on Substack, what you'll see that both of us have been doing a lot is amplifying that content whether that be AI content that we find is really good and really educational. I think I shared 3 or 4 things today that I thought was really a great perspective. And we're also just sharing little things that we find interesting. And if you follow me, you're going to get the whole wide range of Danica life. And I do that very intentionally, partially because I'm passionate about a lot of things, but partially because, yes, I do use AI in parts of my process. I'm very open about that because I want to educate people about AI. However, as Steph and I have said, you're under no obligation to disclose. And we advise people at this time, please don't disclose. The only time you want to disclose is if it is a requirement by a retailer or some other platform that you're on that requires AI disclosure. Please do not lie. And we're going to get on Danica's soapbox again. If you are saying, I don't use AI, don't bash AI. Like, don't become a liar. It's okay to not disclose. It's not okay to lie about it. And I want to be really clear about that because the one thing through all of this that you have, that we have, that I hold very precious, I know Steph holds very precious, is our own personal integrity. And please don't lie about that. And part of it, for example, my work with Publish Drive is we don't ask about AI because we want to dox anyone, because we want to like, ooh, this person uses AI. It's because retailers ask us to. And if we do not report honestly, and the retailer is like, hey, you lied about this, or you didn't do this and you didn't do your due diligence, we could have all of our accounts closed and every single one of our customers would suffer for that. And so it's something that telling the truth doesn't just affect you personally, it affects an entire ecosystem around you. Yeah, just lean into that excellence. And where you feel that it's appropriate to disclose, if you're like Steph and I and you want to help people, that's great. And if you don't like how someone's using AI, just shut your mouth. Like, just don't.
just just don't say anything. Like,
Yeah,
why? Why?
it's none of your business. And although I was telling Steph before we started, and I do want to share something because this is really beautiful and neat. So, again, this is May, uh, and you'll hear this in July, but I just went to the Pussifer concert at Red Rocks. So, for those of you who don't know Pussifer, you might be familiar with the band Tool. And Maynard James Keenan is the lead singer of Tool, and he's got a couple other side projects, one of which is called Pussifer. And they just had a new album out, which is why they had the tour, why I went to the concert. And so I followed them on Instagram and I came across this reel from back in October, actually, where they were talking about the new album and talking about this new video they came out. And there's a quote here from Matt Mitchell, who is in the band. And this is what he said. We employed AI to create scenes not possible for us until now, embracing this technology as an inspirational creative tool. And I was so excited about that. I told Steph, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this because if you know anything about Maynard James Keenan, he is one of those people who is always innovating, always pushing the envelope, always trying to do something different. And I realized Maynard didn't say this, his bandmate said it, but it was in the same thing that Maynard was quoted in. And obviously, it's not going to be put out there if Maynard doesn't approve it because they kind of work on this whole if the whole band isn't all for this, we don't do it kind of thing. And I just thought it was really impressive that this band that is known for their innovation, Pussifer is just constantly pushing the envelope and trying new and innovative things. And that's how it even came about as a band, that even they're embracing AI as a creative tool. And that doesn't mean that it's replacing them. It was a fantastic show. It was easily one of the top 10 shows I've been to. And I loved it. And one of the things that I love, I know some people hate this about Tool and Maynard particularly, but Pussifer, because Maynard is the singer of that, has the same rule. They don't allow cell phones at the shows. You're not allowed to record it, and you will be ejected from the show if you're caught recording. And then at the very end, they let you record one song as, hey, you were good, here's your reward. But it was so interesting listening to some of the stuff that they were talking about at the concert. This idea of that they want you to be present. The no cell phone rule is for a lot of reasons, but part of it is this idea of where are you present in your life? How are you being present at a concert? You just spent all this money to be at this show. So why not just fully be there and be immersed in it? And that's why I've loved every one of their shows I go to, because it's such a fully immersive experience and I'm fully present. And taking this back to the whole AI stuff and being present and being more human and showing the human sides of ourselves, that's what AI enables us to do, is we can offload these tasks that are consuming our minds and are stressing us out so that we can be more present. This morning, I gave some feedback at work and it was met with, well, have you written a document about this thing that you're telling? And I'm like, oh, shoot. And actually, I do have the document. I was like, I do have that document. And I was about to say, yep, here it is. And I was like, but I know I don't have that one thing in there. So rather than worrying about it and let it consume my brain, here we are. I sent it the document into the AI. I said, here's the document. Here are the things I wanted to update. What else needs to be updated before I send it on? And so suddenly, instead of spending probably 2 hours on this task, it's happening right now as I'm talking. And I'm free to do this and not be, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about this thing. No, it's taken care of. And it's not a big deal. It's more the tedium of updating a document that stresses me out. And that's what I think
Yeah.
is, yeah. And Steph's been doing all this
Mhm.
painting, and she just shared some creators that she's following on YouTube for how-tos and tutorials. I'm like, cool. I'm going to go look more at that. And I don't, I'm speaking for myself here, but I'm sure Steph can chime in as well. But this is why I love AI, because I have the time to sit down and do something creative like painting and like all the fun art stuff.
Yeah, I've found hours in the day that I didn't have before. And that has given me time to do other things that I love to do, the creative things. I was just this morning telling Elizabeth that some people do morning pages where they sit down and they write in the morning and they get their creative juices flowing and whatnot, but I'm a morning knitter. That's what I do in the morning. I queue up some television shows I've been watching or some YouTube that I'm interested in, whether that's watercolor tutorials. I'm really into watercolor lately, or I'm learning about acrylic inks or anything, whatever is in my watch later on YouTube. Let me tell you, that list on YouTube has gotten really, really long over the last couple of months. I'm like, oh, just add it to my watch later, add it to my watch later. So I go in there, sit down with my knitting, and I spend about an hour, watching some shows, moving my hands in a repetitive fashion, which tends to calm my nervous system, gets me ready for the day, and allows me to wake up a little bit. I'm not much of a morning person. I'm like a late morning person, early afternoon. That's generally my time window when I do the best, from like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Those are my really good hours where I get a lot done and whatnot. And so on the edges of those hours, I'm not that great. So in the morning, it's a little bit of knitting time with my YouTube or whatever. And then in the evening, I save that time for family time, for watercolors, or just making any kind of art, even if it's coloring in a coloring book. Like, it doesn't have to be me making something great or amazing. It's just a meditative process to keep my brain functioning and healthy, because during those hours when I'm working from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., I'm doing a lot, right? I'm working on curriculum, I'm generating prose, I'm editing stuff, I'm doing a lot. I'm making videos, whatever it may be. There's a lot going on in those hours, and I can actually do a lot in those hours because I have AI on my side now. In the past, oh man, I was working 14 hours a day as a self-published author. There was just so much work to do. I couldn't even get to it all on most days. There was just so much, and there came a point where the money still isn't all that great coming in as a self-published author, so you can't justify like farming some of that work out to somebody else because the money is not flowing in the right direction. But now we're able to actually get those things done with AI, and I'm happier for it. I'm very happy to have had the time to experiment, figure out the things that are working for me, and get rid of the things that are not. I tried for many months to generate lots of chapters and then just edit them and be happy with them, and I couldn't. I've got my workmates, Elizabeth and a couple of other people who love that, who really like make very intricate outlines. They know how to tell the AI exactly what they want. They get back chapters and then just have to edit them and put them out. And I couldn't do that. Like, it just not in my nature. But I had to do that to figure it out. I couldn't just dismiss it right away. That is also not my nature. I need to see things for myself, make the decisions, and then move on from there. So like in general, I'm still writing, but my writing is very AI assisted now, not generative as it used to be. I tried.
I think you and I are very similar in that because I wanted to try it and I wanted to see what results I could get. And as much as I try, I just cannot get exactly what I want. And I still remember Elizabeth from the early days. And, don't be a T-Rex. Sometimes you just got to put your hands on the keyboard and do the thing. I never put my hands on the keyboard and do the thing. I dictate the thing. But same principle, same principle. And and I just read this really cool Substack article earlier today. I wish I had thought to save it, but it's there somewhere, and probably again doesn't fully matter. But the author mentioned this idea of the real problem with AI is that we aren't learning what our process with AI is. And I really liked that perspective because I think we all have our AI process. And so many people will say, I hear this all the time. Oh, AI doesn't work. It didn't work for me. I didn't get good results doing this. I put in this, and here's the thing, like Steph and I have been using AI for what, 3 or 4 years now. And so we had a 3 or 4 year process of figuring out what works for us with AI writing and what doesn't. And that's really valuable data. And I think sometimes people don't spend enough time on the data gathering piece of using AI. And so, for example, I talked a little bit about this in the previous episode. I'm going on a trip, which by the time this episode airs, I'll be back from my trip. So I don't know, maybe our first episode back, we should talk about what we did this summer. But I am planning a trip. And I'm doing this very deliberately because, fingers crossed, I will write a book about this, is that I am doing all of my travel plans with AI because I'm going to some places that were not on the roadmap, but it happened because of circumstances in our geopolitical situation. So I was like, okay, my original trip plan isn't going to work. AI, where can I go? Based on these parameters. And AI did the research for me. And so I planned this whole trip. And what I have done is I am popping it into Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, and I'm comparing the results. And so I have almost my entire itinerary planned of, hey, this is where you're going to go. These are the trains you're going to take. This is how you're going to do this and this. And I even was asking yesterday, I may be going on a low-key Danica Drinks Wine Across Europe tour. And it occurred to me that, well, how am I going to get all my wine home? And
you're gonna have to ship it. Yeah.
Well,
We've done this. We did this in France.
Okay, I love this. I love this because yes, I may have to ship it. How will I do that? And Gemini actually gave me the exact place to ship it from nearest my hotel in Venice when I go home.
Ah, so that's awesome.
And But the point being is I'm doing this with all the different models and comparing results because some models are better than others for certain tasks. And like Gemini gives me the whole map. It's awesome because it's connected to Google. So it will pull up the Google map for me. And it's like,
Yep.
here's your map. Here's all the
Hmm.
things. And I'm a huge map person. So I'm like, thank you, Gemini. You're amazing. I love you. You're the best. And I think when Gemini first came out, I announced that Gemini was my AI boyfriend. And for travel, yeah, I like
Yeah.
him. I like him a lot. And
Yeah.
think about the tasks that you're using. And so I want you to share what you were talking about, your lovely experience with Claude and why you made that decision, not because we're bashing, but just to show like the evolution of the tools. And sometimes tools that we think are really good for something aren't anymore. And that's just how it works.
Yeah, I will talk about that in a second. I'm going to expand a little bit on your Gemini thing because
Okay.
in September 2024, I went to Japan with my husband. It was our 20-year wedding anniversary, and we both love Japan. So we went to Japan together. And while we were there, Gemini was it like 1.0, 1.5, something like that. When we were there, I used it a lot to help us get around, to find places where we could eat. We're both we're both restrictive in our diets. I'm like a gluten-free pescatarian, and he doesn't eat dairy, and blah blah blah. So we were actually able to use Gemini a lot when we were in Japan, and it would hook up straight up to Maps, which was great too, because it was just like, oh, just send me over to Maps because I have all of these places saved in Maps. I also love Maps. I love that about you, that we both love Maps. I love Maps so much, and I have a really good sense of direction. So it's like my superpower. But yeah, so like you were saying, some models are great for some things and others not so much. But I love them all in the different things that they're good at, right? So I go to Gemini for certain things. I like to go to it for planning. I like to go to it for personal stuff. I talk to it about health conditions. I talk to it about my watercolors. I had it help me put together a travel watercolor palette because I'm going to go visit my mom next week in South Carolina. And I was like, I want to bring some of my watercolors with me, and they're all in these little pans. So, but I have like 50 of them. And I was like, I'm not sure which colors to choose. And Gemini helped me choose all the colors for my traveling watercolor, which is great. I can't wait to take it and see how it works out for me, see if I use them. But so then I also love Claude for generating prose and for brainstorming and world building and all that kind of stuff. And it's so good at helping me write my Substack posts. It's great for me for my blog and everything. And I've always used it through the API and through TypingMind, which is typingmind.com for anybody who wants to go check it out. It's a chat utility that allows you to just put in the API keys for the major providers like Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, and an open router key as well, a few other things. And you can just chat with any of them all within the same tool, which is great because I went to that because it had folders and I was able to tag things and find things much easier. It had a great search tool. So I went over to this TypingMind before Claude ever got projects. I've never used Claude projects. I've never used it inside of their tool. And then they started developing all these other cool things. There's Claude Code now, there's Claude Cowork, there's Claude Design. And so a few months ago, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead, plunk down the $20 a month just to see what I've been missing over here on this tool, right? On Claude AI. So I go over. I don't really use it so much for chat because I already have a system set up that's all got all of my conversations in it. So I don't want to like reinvent the wheel there. But I started using it for the other tasks like Cowork. It's kind of hard to say it. It's Claude Cowork, Claude Code. I started using it for those things and tried Claude Design as well as I was working on a redesign of the Future Fiction Academy website. But what I noticed and what was driving me nuts was that I would hit these arbitrary limits. Like I can see in the settings and the preferences area inside of Claude, the little bar ticking up about what I'm using inside of the tool for the $20 a month, what I'm getting out of it, when my limits are going to hit, when they're going to reset. And I just found it actually very stressful because I could see those limits coming and I knew I was working on a project. And what killed me was that I was in the middle of working on something and I would ask Claude Design for help with something and I could see that it was thinking. It's thinking, and then boom, you've hit your limit. You don't get an output from all that thinking. And I was a little upset about that because when all of those tokens that you're using that are going towards your limit every single time that it gets reset are also the thinking tokens that it's using on the background to make decisions about stuff and then giving you an output, a decision that it made, so that you can move on with the rest of your conversation. So when it's out there thinking and using up those tokens, but then it doesn't give you an output, it feels like theft. It felt like theft to me. In my chest, I was like, oh, it just stole all those tokens to do all that thinking, and it's not going to give me an output. And when I come back to this tool later, it will be quite possibly that it has forgotten what it was doing, and it's going to have to use those tokens again to do all of that thinking and then finally give me an output. And I got mad and angry and then I canceled it.
Yeah, I had the same experience. That's why I wanted to share it, because so many people are like, oh yeah, Claude co-work and code, it's the best, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to, and I didn't do it. I almost bit the bullet and said, okay, I guess I have to do the $100 a month. And I'm like, no, because I never hit a limit when I'm using Gemini. I never hit the limit when I'm using ChatGPT. ChatGPT is still my boo. Like I use it for so much and I have it so well trained at this point that I'm like, I'm not getting rid of you ever. It's fine. And keep in mind, again, we're saying this in May, this in July when this comes out, maybe Anthropic has fixed this. And I would love it if that were the case, because again, I've had that same thing where I'm like, okay, I'm working to solve this problem that I have. And yet, as I'm doing that, Claude's like thinking. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of content, out of tokens. And I'm like, okay, so you just stole my whole tokens for this session. And now I have to wait until I can do a new session. And there's no guarantee you're not going to use up all these tokens. That's no bueno. And
No, no
I've
bueno.
even bought extra tokens. I think I've got like a $50 credit right now in Claude, and it still times out. And I'm like, yeah, and you just took all this stuff and I can't do that. And part of why I want to say this is that I recognize, again, my friends who have the $100 plan are like, that's never happened to me. I'm like, yeah, but you're willing to pay $100 a month. And one of the things I've really emphasized, particularly this season, is this idea of privilege and the fact that it does cost money to use a lot of these different models. And for a lot of people, that $20 a month is precious and they don't have the $20 a month. And certainly for me, the $100 a month was going to be a lot. I'm certainly not making enough to justify spending $100 a month. And so I sat with it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And so for those of you who are struggling and are like, well, why doesn't this work? If you can't afford to upgrade, please don't. Because number one, I think the tool will improve. I do have that faith in Anthropic because people are so mad about it that usually Anthropic's pretty good about listening. And also, there are just other tools that you can use. Like I said, I've never run into a limit with ChatGPT, and they supposedly are coming out again. Maybe by the time this airs in July, they're looking at coming out with a tool that's like Cowork. And I've seen where Gemini is also getting more integrations and things like that. And so my advice to everyone, and this is something that I think we've said before, but I'm going to just say it again, is be familiar with those three on the free level at the very least. Play with it, experiment with it. And as I was doing with my travel, sure, I could get all my answers just from Gemini because it is, in my opinion, the best. But maybe see, what does Claude say? What does ChatGPT say? And I will say, even though I think Gemini is the best, ChatGPT, as I mentioned, I have it so well trained because I've been using it from day one on the paid level. ChatGPT knows my vibe. And so I'll have this grand thing planned out with Gemini and I'll ask ChatGPT and Chat's like, so slow your roll. This isn't your vibe. You need to rest more. You need to take it a little slower. I would not do all three of those things. Pick one. You can have a second one if you really have the energy that day, but you don't get to do three things. And I'm like, Chat, I hate you for being right, but it is right.
It knows you.
It knows me so well. And that's the other thing about playing with the models and knowing them is every day I have a tarot practice. I draw my tarot cards for the day. However, I get really into this. I have a new moon intention and I have all of these parameters. And so every month I put that in. I have a new chat for that. And then every day I say, here are my cards. How does this play against A, what's going on in my world, what's going on in my day, and how it compares to this intention that I set for the month. And the past couple nights, chat has called me out so hard because I was like, I'm feeling really discouraged. I know these cards are good and this is what happened and it's good. So why do I feel this way? And chat's like, hi, you're recovering from trauma and this is normal. And you are gaslighting yourself into thinking things are worse than they actually are. So let's be a little more realistic in what's actually happening here. Let's try break this down for you. And I'm like, thank you, chat. You're my bestie. This is why I still keep you around. And and other people I see in the writing groups, they're like, oh yeah, Claude doesn't write smut. And I'm like, yes, it does. You just have to prompt it properly and it has to know you and what you're doing. I did recently launch a spicy pen name. That is secret. Sorry, you don't get to know. And literally, I've put stuff in there and I'm like, yeah, Claude's probably not going to do what I want it to do. I'm going to just have to write this piece myself. And Claude takes it spicier than I intended. The stuff was way spicier than I intended. And then it says, and there was this one part where it said to me, it said, okay, so how many orgasms would you like this character to have? And I'm like, what? Thank you, Claude. You're giving women multiple orgasms.
Very women positive. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you, Claude.
I appreciate you, Claude. Yeah, just to reiterate, I don't hate Claude. I just canceled that particular chat subscription, the $20 a month for the pro, because I realized that, I have a good thing going with all of my other tools where I do use Claude and I don't have any problems. I use Claude for coding within Anti-Gravity, which is an IDE where I get a lot of coding done. I whipped up a website last night for my husband, needed something. I was like, here you go, Claude and I will make you a website. It's all good. I use Claude inside of Notion AI. It does help me with a lot of writing tasks, a lot of administrative tasks. It's right there for me in there. And then I use it inside of TypingMind, where I'm able to adjust all of the parameters on the back end. And this was one of the things that I felt where I could have possibly made the subscription work if I had access to all the bells and the different dials on the back end. Because on the back end, you can change the thinking tokens to different levels. You can say only a low thinking, it will only use a little bit of thinking tokens, so all the way up to high, where it will think a lot and it will use up a lot of tokens, but maybe you need something like that for a really important task. So it's fine. That is something that I can do through TypingMind, and that is something that I do through TypingMind. I change those things. I do prompt caching. I do a lot of things that allow me to use Claude for as long as I need to and keep my costs down. And I don't have access to those things within their chat tool. And that's fine. That doesn't work out for a lot of people like me, who I understand all the stuff on the back end that I can change, but it works out great for the normal customer, the normal consumer of Claude, and that's fine. This is a lot about understanding your process, understanding the tools, what you want to choose and what you don't want to choose, choosing the right tool for the job. Not all of them do everything great, like we've just been saying. So It's fine. Claude and I are still friends. We're still friends. I still use all of those tools. It's just one of those things where sometimes a particular way that you use the tool just doesn't work out for you. That's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point too. When you're accessing through the API, you're purchasing a chunk of tokens. And so it's a lot easier to understand how much each task is going to cost you and what those costs are. And in a lot of cases, and I know this is something that way in the early days we all were talking about amongst ourselves, is that oftentimes, like when you're paying this $20 a month subscription, um, it's if you were going through the API, you wouldn't necessarily be spending $20 a month through the API. And so that may be another place where you test is okay, if you wanted to get a subscription and do the paid subscription, perhaps what you do is you just buy tokens through the API and you use something like TypingMind and figure out, okay, where are all my tokens going? Which ones am I using the most? For me personally, and I know Steph, you're the same way, I pay for Google because I also appreciate having all the other Google One stuff that I use in my whole life. And so that $20 a month makes a ton of sense for me. And
Yeah,
so again, look at the pros and cons of what makes sense for you and why. And so maybe if you're going to be using a model sometimes or only for certain tasks, that is a perfect place where you want to use the API.
that's true. Yeah, I love that Google One subscription because I use that and then I get more drive space on Google Drive and I have all of these other things that it gives me access to. And that's why the $20 a month is no big deal because I'm getting so much out of it. Whereas I wasn't having the same experience with Claude on the desktop, and that's fine. That works out well. But yeah, so we're using these tools and we're making them work for us. We're the authors, we're the humans at the center of all of this. And I think that's still very important for us to hammer home. I listen to Joanna Penn. She's an inspiration in my life, and she has said many times that she's not a person who just goes and generates lots of stuff. She doesn't generate books or those sorts of things. She's an AI assisted author. The AI is assisting her, and I think that the majority of authors are the same way. We're using these tools as assistants to help us with different tasks, to help us, even if it is helping you generate prose, you are still there in the prose, working it, making sure that it sounds right, that it's doing the right things for you. And I feel like that is the majority of authors using these tools, and that the people who are just generating a book and dropping it on Amazon KDP, that's not the majority of us. It's certainly probably not the majority of people who are listening to this podcast right now who are curious about these tools and have come here to learn a little bit more about that. And I'm not saying that there's a lot of things wrong with generating whole books. I think that where we fall off of the continuum of from good to bad is where we don't take any kind of human in the loop step where you're not in there and you're not showing some sort of investment in the work that you're producing. So something to think about as you're moving forward with these tools is like, how can you use them to amplify your creativity? That was the word that I used. Danica couldn't remember earlier. The amplify your creativity, help you be more of yourself so that you can serve your audience.
Yeah. And that's so important to think about when you're listening to this, when you're listening to our episodes, even when you're listening to authors talk about it. How you use AI is how you use AI. It isn't anyone's business, number one, unless again you want to educate people. But I would also caution you, don't go into the groups guns blazing. This is how you're supposed to use AI, or oh, you're a bad person for using AI this way, or you shouldn't use AI for this. Like, it is a personal decision how you're going to use AI, what you're going to use AI for, and nobody has the right to tell you otherwise. Yes, you want to follow vendor guidelines, because ultimately you've signed an agreement with the vendor that you're going to follow their rules. And so if you don't want to follow their rules, don't use that vendor. But make sure that you are acting in integrity with yourself. But if somebody is making a different decision than you, don't attack their integrity because they have thought through it just as deeply as you have, and they've spent a lot of time figuring out what works for them and for their business. And so let's honor each other and each other's choices because I have good friends who can generate a whole book, publish the book, and it does great. However, I also know, like we had Coral Hart on here. We've had a few other authors who are very similar, but they have a whole thought process. It's not just, oh, I'm going to throw a prompt into ChatGPT to write a book and boom, now I'm going to put it on and I'm not going to review it. They have a whole system of prompts and evaluation, and they're making sure that they're putting up quality work. And I use the word quality. I hate that word. I don't know a different word because quality is subjective.
Yes, it
And
is.
and what we think is good quality someone else may not think is good quality. I just mentioned a band that I really like. Some of you probably were like, oh my gosh, I hate them. And some of you are like, oh my gosh, I love them. And others are probably like, I have never heard of them. And that's okay because we all have different tastes and different ways to evaluate what is high quality. And ultimately, the end consumer is going to be the final arbiter of whether or not that is good quality because it's something they love. And if somebody loves a book that I think is crappy, good for them. Really good for them and good for the author because I know, and all of you listening can think of an example of a really popular book that you absolutely hated and everyone talked about how much they loved. And it's the same thing. It is the absolutely same thing. And we just need to say, okay, not my thing. Moving on. Hope you enjoy. Have a great day.
Yeah, I have a list. I have a
Right?
long list of those books, right? This is an excellent conversation to have had. I think that we're going to wrap up a little bit here because we are just doing this, the two of us, and I'm sure that we could talk forever on
We
this
could.
topic, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure, though, that we talk about the fact that we're about to go on a little bit of a hiatus here. In general, Danica and I, we both lead very busy lives, and the summer is especially busy for us. Danica does a lot of traveling, and so do I. I have a beach house in the south of New Jersey. My kids are home from school, that sort of thing. So we do a lot during the summer. So we're going to take off a few weeks here. It's going to feel like a few weeks to you guys, but it's going to feel a little bit longer for Danica and I because we managed to bank up a lot of interviews before we decided to take this little hiatus. But we want to mention that we would love to hear from you guys about people that you would like to hear from on this podcast. Okay. So we do a lot of brainstorming between the two of us about who we've had on and parts of the process that may be missing from the interviews that were the people that we have on here. I want to encourage people to come onto the comments of this YouTube video. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, come on over to YouTube, leave a comment on the YouTube video. Let us know if there's somebody you want to hear from, or if there's a particular part of the process that we haven't discussed, whether it's like audio, video. We've discussed a lot of these already. I think that it's going to be a vanishingly small amount of things that we haven't covered yet. So on the comments to this video, also you could come by the website bravenewbookshelf.com and comment on the show notes for this particular episode. Let us know who you're interested in.
Yeah. And you can also do that on our Facebook page as well. Any one of those works out really great. I do all of the booking. I was just telling Steph, we were talking about things that we would like to have or guests we would like to have on. And yeah, for us, it's a short list simply because I think we've had a lot of our dream guests already, and that's been fantastic. And we're really excited. But I know that some of you listening know people who are doing really cool things in the AI space that we would like to hear about. And that's one of the things that I've noticed. For example, the more I lean into Substack and things like that, I'm seeing all these really great content creators on Substack who have interesting things to say. And so maybe we'll invite some of them, or if there's somebody that you want us to follow, let us know about that, because we really do want to give a variety of perspectives. All that to say, we do vet our guests. And if it's not somebody we've heard of or someone we've talked to, Steph and I probably will have a conversation with them ahead of time, because we do take our jobs very seriously to make sure that we're curating good content and good information. And some of you may have noticed that there are episodes that have disappeared from our episode lineup, and that is because since they were on our show, they proved to be bad actors, and we do not endorse them, and we will not endorse them.
Yep, nope. We'll delete the episodes and take them down if things go awry. Where this is one of the other parts about being self-published is the fact that we get to have the ultimate say about what goes out underneath our names and our brand. So yeah, we do take this very seriously, and we do want to hear from new people. It's okay if I haven't heard about this person before, but we're going to vet them, and we're going to make sure that everything is copacetic before we have them on the show. And then we take our job seriously too afterward. If things go wrong, we're willing to take down the episode and move on from there. So yeah, one of those things, just one of those things about life. Things change over time.
It is. And things do change. Like I said, we're recording this in May, and this will go out in July. And so a lot may have changed in those 2 months. And that's just how the technology moves and how technology flows. Next season, Steph and I are looking at doing a live episode, which will be exciting and scary and terrifying, but we're going to do it. And we also have decided, because we've heard from some people, we're going to do some more solo episodes. So all of those different things, any ideas you have, we're open to it, because that's really what's important, is making sure that we're serving the community and we're providing good information for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay, so come by bravenewbookshelf.com. Check out the show notes for this episode. Leave us a comment if you have anybody in mind that you want us to check out. And definitely check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter, especially. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you can always hit reply on that and talk to us as well. That email address is open for business. So if you have anything particular that you need to tell us about, you can go ahead, subscribe, and then reply to any of the emails that you get from there. And just have a great summer. We want you guys to enjoy the time, and we will definitely be seeing you back here, right, Danica?
Yes, we will. So yeah, go like, subscribe, Future Fiction Academy, Future Fiction Press, Publish Drive, all the different channels. I've started some live YouTubes on Publish Drive as well, so you can check those out every week. And also, make sure you check out Steph and I Substacks. We both have a Substack. Like I said, I'm more random. Steph is more AI focused, but all great resources, and we both share a lot of AI information there as well.
Yeah, you can find Danica. She's on there as Danica Favorite, and I have a dedicated URL for my Substack. It's aiandauthorship.com. So you can come find us both over there. We talk to people, we do notes, we post often. So if you are missing us during our time off, you can find us there as well. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the time off, and we will see you guys in the next one. Okay?
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Brave New Bookshelf. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. You can also visit us at bravenewbookshelf.com, sign up for our newsletter, and get all the show notes.